Hey everybody, Matt here, and in this video I'm going to be showing you guys what a call option is, an options contract. And in this video I'm going to be specifically talking about a call option. There's also something called a put option, which I'll get to in a later video, but this is just talking about a call option. And I'm also going to be making a series. This is going to be the first video in a series of videos where I'm explaining, basic options contracts and how you can really use options to make better than average returns in the market. It's a really fascinating, tool to trade, and I think you guys will really like it. So anyway, the best way that I can explain a call option is actually using the analogy of buying a house. So let's say you have a house, and you'll have to excuse my terrible drawing here, but I think that that'll get the point across. That's a house. And, let's say here's your buyer. We'll call him Bob. And this is the seller. We'll call him, here's Bob. Oops. Bob, and we'll call this guy Alex. So now Bob wants to buy this house from Alex. And so what Bob is going to do, and let's say the house is selling for $200,000. That's what Alex wants. He wants $200,000 for this house. What Bob's going to do is he's not necessarily going to buy this house right away. Just send Alex $200,000 cash and call it a done deal. That does happen sometimes, but generally that's not the way home buying works. What's going to happen is Bob is going to put up what's called an escrow, and the escrow is generally 1% to 2% of the purchase price of the house. Let me just put a dollar sign. So what Bob's going to do is he's going to put down, we'll call it $2,000. $2,000 as escrow. And it's also kind of called like goodwill, or doing it in good faith, not goodwill, but in good faith. So basically Bob is committing, he's showing Alex that, hey, look, I'm really serious. I really do want to buy your house for $200,000. Here's $2,000 just to kind of get things going. So I'm somebody who's a serious buyer and I'm not just kicking your tires. And so what that does too for Bob is it locks in the purchase price of the house for $200,000. So let's say, a month goes by and Bob has to, he's got to talk it over with his wife. He's got to do an inspection. He's got to pay for an inspection on the house to make sure there's nothing wrong with it. He's got to do all these things to kind of prepare to buy a house. There's a lot that goes into it. He's got to get the title company to make sure the title's clean, et cetera, et cetera. And so in the meantime, Alex just has Bob's $2,000 sitting in an escrow account. But again, what it does for Bob is it locks in that purchase price. So let's say a month goes by and Bob's still, working on buying this house. But let's say the house goes up in value. The home market's going crazy like it actually is right now. Let's say the home goes up to 200 and we'll call it $210,000. Just put okay right there. So that now the home is actually worth $210,000. So Bob essentially just made $10,000, even though he hasn't bought the house yet. But the reason why he made $10,000 is because he has a contract, a written piece of paper. That's a written piece of paper that he paid $2,000 for this contract to guarantee that he can buy the house from Alex at $200,000. So now what happens is that Alex is on the hook. Alex has to sell Bob the house for $200,000. Even though the house is now worth $210,000, Alex can't sell the house for $210,000 because he already agreed and signed a contract, which is right here on the screen, with Bob. He signed the contract with Bob to sell it to him for $200,000. So I hope that makes sense. That's the way an option contract works, and it works the same exact way in the stock market. And so, and basically what happens, or what Bob really did, if we put it into the context of the stock market here, is he bought a call option. So, and another way to think about this is use the word call, right? So it's a call option. So Bob has the right to call this house here away from Alex. So think of it that way. He has the right to call it away from Alex, and that'll make more sense when we get into what a put is and why a put is different. But for now, just focus on the call. Bob bought a call from Alex. Alex sold the call to Bob, and now they have a written contract. And by the way, here's another couple of things to note. The strike price, what we call the strike price, which is the price that Bob is able to buy the house at, is $200,000. So this is, I don't have any room to write this on the screen, but this is the strike price right here. Okay, this is the market value. $210,000 is the market value, which was equal to the strike price at a certain time when they made the contract. But now the strike price and the market value are two different numbers. In this right here, this $2,000 in real estate, that's called the escrow money. But in the stock market, that's called the premium. Okay, so if you've ever sold insurance or you've ever dealt with insurance, you know that you pay premiums to have an insurance policy. It's very similar. That's another analogy that you could use. It's very similar in the stock market where you're paying a premium to own that contract. Okay, so what's interesting though is that this contract, this $2,000, and I promise I won't get too technical in this video. This is just a 101 beginner, intro to call option video. But what's interesting though is that this $2,000 will actually fluctuate in value as the market price of the house fluctuates. So it actually, this contract now is actually even worth more money. So if Bob wanted to, he could just sell this contract, and he's not even selling the house. He's just flipping the contract to someone else who wants to buy the house for $200,000, because now that's worth, there's what's called the intrinsic value, and again, I'm not going to get too technical, but basically, this was a good deal for Bob. Bob made a smart choice. And so anyway, that's just the very basics of a call option. Again, what's important to note is the strike price, which we have right here. Oops, I just crossed that out. Bad move on my part. So again, this is the strike price, $200,000. This is the premium, $2,000. And Alex is the one who wrote the call. Okay, so he wrote the call. What's also called, he was a seller. He was a seller of the call. And Bob over here, he bought the call. Okay, this screen's getting a little too crazy, so I'm going to take some of this off. But you get the point there. Hopefully, again, it's pretty simple conceptually. Once we start diving deeper into it, you'll see that there's a bunch of things that can get a little bit more confusing and a little bit more technical when we start talking about intrinsic value and delta and theta and time decay and all these different things, right? But we're going to take it step by step. This is basic call option 101. And yeah, I think I covered all my bases there. So I'm going to stop this video, and then in the next videos, we'll be talking about some more advanced options and option strategies. So stay tuned. A couple other real quick things I wanted to note. So we have Bob over here and Alex over here. When we're talking about in the context of the stock market, Bob is what we would also call long. So he's long, meaning that he thinks the value of this home is going to go up. That's why he bought the option in the first place. He thought that this house is going to increase in value. Now, Alex, on the other hand, he's what we would call short. So he's short this house because he thinks that the house is either he thinks it's probably most likely going to go down in value or maybe just stay the same, about the same. But Bob maybe knows something that Alex doesn't, and that's why he bought the call. So that's how it works in the stock market. I know in real estate, it's a little bit different. People aren't necessarily, buying an option contract because they think the real estate market's going to go up. They just want to buy a house to live in it. But it's a little bit different in the stock market because people are buying and selling calls based on whether they're long or short. Okay, so that's just something that you need to know when you're dealing in options. The only reason that you would buy a call, if you're just buying one single call, is because you think that particular stock is going to go up in value. The only reason you would sell a call, if you're just selling one call, is because you think it's going to go down in value. Another thing to note, which will come, it'll be important later on, or more important later on, and it's pretty obvious, but it's that Bob actually let me try to correct it. Okay, Bob actually had to pay money. So what we call that a net debit, a net debit. He actually had to pay money for this option contract. Now, Alex, on the other hand, he got credited. He got money into his bank account for writing this option, or for writing this option. So we would call that a credit or a net credit. Okay, two more important concepts right there. So net credit, net debit, long and short. One other thing, and this is the last thing to note, which is that an option in the stock market is going to have an expiration date. So it may be for a month out, it may be for 2 months out, it may be even for a year out. But at some point, that contract is no longer going to become valid. It's going to expire if it's not executed. So it can either be executed and Bob can buy the house, or he can just let that contract expire and he would lose his $2,000 that he put up in escrow. Okay, so that's how that works. I like using the analogy of a house because again, I think makes it a little bit easier for people to understand. I mean, it is a little bit different than the way it works in the stock market, but it's very, very similar. So anyway, I hope this video helps you just understand kind of the basics of a call. Again, you have two sides to it. You got Bob and Alex. Alex is the one writing the call. Bob is the one buying the call. And Bob is essentially, he's long, the stock or the house, and Alex is short. Okay. So that's the way it works. I will be making, probably the next video I think will be about, like if it's in the money or out of the money. And I'll be showing you guys, how to do that, or how to see that in your brokerage account. So anyway, hope this is helpful and stay tuned for more.